So we're going to get going. This is welcome. Thank you very much for making it. This is Friday, and we're all hungry already, apparently. We're having a session today on the landscape of multimedia and scholarly communications. That's probably the one session where we're not going to be able to play the AI/blockchain/big data bingo. We're just going to be talking about video and audio today. Just a quick word about me. So my name is Violene Iglesias. I'm from Multimedia, which you probably haven't heard of yet. It's a startup I founded 3 days ago. I do. Thank you very much. I've got business cards, so talk to me afterwards. But I do have a background in publishing and in media publishing specifically. I worked for Sage Publishing for a few years, where I was part of the development of the Sage video collections, which you may have heard of. They're very successful video collections that are sold as subscription products to libraries. And after that, I worked with GVPI, which is a small development company where I created a product line around video and audio content as well. Sage bought GVPI, so I am now creating my own startup, continuing in the same vein. And very happy today to have assembled this panel of experts. We're, however, hoping to make this a conversation, so we have left a lot of time for Q&A in the end, mostly because we want to hear what you have to say as much as tell you what we have to say. This is still an area that is, video and audio are both kind of ancient and also new-ish in this world. There is a lot to be done specifically in scholarly communication to use video and audio better. There's no question that they need to be used a lot more, but there are business models to be defined, products to be invented, user paths to discovery to be found. So there's a lot to be discussed. So we're going to be leaving a lot of time at the end. We're hoping to answer questions, but we're also hoping that the audience can answer questions. If you're here, you probably have an interest. So whether you're thinking about doing anything with video, audio, whether you have experiences that you want to share, whether you have questions that you want to ask, we're going to have some time in the end for that. So just a quick word. This is probably too small for you to read, but the only thing you need to read, to see is this red line here, red block. The title says nearly all Gen Zers use YouTube and half can't live without it. No matter what we think of YouTube and of the reliance of the younger generations on video, it is just a fact that Gen X, Millennial, and Gen Z, so the three generations that are mostly employed now and are going to be employed and that are going to be, for Gen Zs that are students right now, they rely on video a lot for a number of things. They do watch hauling videos and unboxing videos, which if you haven't heard of, you should go check out. It's a trend that is quite a mystery. I think it's an eye-opener. It opens your eyes on the kinds of things that younger people are doing with video today and how important it is in their lives. But this is just a chart that shows you the importance of YouTube in their hearts as opposed to Instagram, Facebook, all kinds of other social media networks. And then this is another chart. I don't know if you're going to be able to read this very well. This is a chart that is courtesy of my new business partner for Multimedia, my new company, Simon Inger. He's been doing work with societies and publishing organizations for a long time. And we were looking at the kinds of activities that publishing organizations as well as societies do. Publication, membership, conferences, CMEs, advocacy, training, public outreach, lobbying, and all the users, all their audiences, so from authors, researchers, practitioners, students, libraries, journals, public government. We're looking at this with the idea of trying to focus on the areas where video and audio were relevant, and we just could not find areas where it wasn't. So whether it's about learning, whether it's about communication, whether it's about building communities, whether it's for advocacy, whether it's for events, video and audio are really relevant in lots of areas that societies and publishing organizations are involved in. So this is actually my intro for Sam, who is our first speaker today. She's going to be to dig deeper into the landscape. So she's going to give you an overview of based on research that they have done, that Sam has done on this on this through interviews with publishers. And after that, we're going to have 2 case studies from Ed and Dan from American Psychological Association and the JAMA Network. So we're going to cover both video and audio, and we're going to cover, with Sam, we're going to cover a whole range of organizations. That's it for me. So welcome, and we're going to try to switch between the presentations gracefully. Success, I think,
right,
for now.
Thanks, Violaine.
Sit here, because there's only 3 chairs.
Hi, everyone. I have to say I was not sure how many people we were going to have here today, because I'm sitting there going, it's Friday. But I'm thrilled to see you all here, so thanks for coming. The other thing when I was preparing for this talk that's really hard to judge when you're doing something like this is you go, okay, so I've got this sea of faces here. I don't know whether I'm speaking to experts who are here with some questions about, you know, how do you handle metadata and discovery for videos? That's one question. Or at the other end of the spectrum, you can have people going, well, we know we need to be doing something with video, but what do we do? So I had 20 minutes. I've written something that's about 30 minutes, but I speak really fast. So I've promised Violaine it'll only be 25 minutes. And so needless to say, the title of my presentation is A Whistle-Stop Tour, because as Violaine's slide showed of where video and audio has applications in the space that we work in, frankly, it's everywhere. So I'm going to be going fast. So a quick introduction as to who I am and why I think I might know something about this. My name's Sam Burrell, as Violaine said. I work for a small consultancy called Renew Publishing Consultants. What we do generally is provide strategic consultancy to organisations of all kinds within our space. And basically what we do is we work with our clients, what we like to do the most. Let's be honest here, we don't always do this, but this is the sort of work we like the most, is to understand the fast-changing nature of the landscape that we're in, and to help them to articulate, work out where they fit in, and work out what they want to be doing. So that's kind of the introduction of how we got into this space, because we're talking to our clients about where we're going, where they're going, what the industry is doing. So it won't surprise you to hear that recently I've been doing quite a lot of work on video and multimedia, and specifically audio, and how that fits in. In November 2017, we did a survey of how many organisations was it? Was it 200?
About 200.
We surveyed 200 organisations, a mixture of societies, publishers, higher education institutions. It was a very brief survey. It was SurveyMonkey, and we were just asking them, how are they using video now? How do they think they're going to be using it in the future? What hurdles they've got, and how much demand from their customer bases they're seeing for these products. In December and January, I did a more qualitative study asking a handful of medium and small publishers what they were thinking about video, how it applied to them, what they were doing, what the challenges they were finding were. So in real life, you know, people who actually work in societies and publishers going, what does this mean for me? How can this small organisation, because in some places that's the biggest challenge, how does a small organisation engage with this in a way that is taking them forward and not too scary? And then in March and April, we broadened it out. We did another study where I think we interviewed about 25 or 30 publishers about what they're doing. We identified some publishers that we think are doing some really interesting things, but we also tried to speak to a range of publishers, even those who were telling us that they weren't doing anything at all, because we felt it would be helpful to have a look at why they're not doing anything at all, and you know, how that fits in. The output of that process is going to be a white paper that we're publishing next month, which is really, it's meant to be a landscape review of what's going on, what's going well, what people are finding difficult. So my talk today is a very quick skip through all the use cases, well, not all the use cases, many of the use cases that we talked about with the publishers. I will pick out a couple of interesting points from each sort. People who were doing things well or particular challenges. Some of the examples I will name because I have permission to name. Some of them will remain anonymised because I haven't yet got permission to name people. I'm hoping to by the time the paper's published. And so, like I said, I speak really fast. We're going to have lots of time at the end for questions. So hold on to your seats. These aren't all the people we spoke to, but just to give you a quick view of who might be coming up. So, I did have a slide on before this that was a snake. And Violaine was going, no, Sam, you just can't put a snake up there. And the reason I had a snake up there is because there's a song in my head, I don't know if any of you know it, I'm being swallowed by a boa constrictor. And you start with your toes, and you're going, oh no, he's swallowed my toes. Then you go, oh gee, he's up to my knees, and so on. And then I was like, no, snake's too much. Let's do beach, and going into the water, it's slightly less intimidating. Although possibly by the time you're completely submerged, maybe it's not. So I don't do slides. I don't like slides very much. So this is for you to look at while I'm talking. If you don't want to look at me. So the first foray into multimedia for most publishers in our space is, frankly, I think quite boring. Doesn't mean to say it's not important, but it's boring for me, which I would describe as ad hoc promotional videos, right? So these are, you can make them on your iPhone, frankly, and post them on YouTube. These are small little snippets that might be about your brand, they might be promoting your subject area, they might be about a conference, they might be promoting a conference, and frankly, they are playing. They have their uses, don't get me wrong, and my advice, if you're not doing anything in this space, is to start doing this right now. But even the people, so we had this list of people that we went to speak to, and even the ones who said, golly, I don't know why you want to speak to us, because actually we're not doing anything at all. 45 minutes later, we discovered that actually they're doing quite a lot. And it's not always that each department knows what the other department is doing. I mean, ultimately, video is a form of communication like writing. All kinds of people do it, to do all kinds of things. And it needs to be in your purview of ways to communicate with your audiences. So I'm not going to spend any more time on that, really, other than to say, if you don't have a social media strategy, you really need one. And video is a useful tool to plug into that. But like I say, I was quite encouraged that even the publishers we spoke to who said, oh no, we're not doing anything with video at all. Actually, that was a lie, and they were. That's good, because that's how you learn what's difficult. It's when you start doing those things where you don't set the bar too high. You just go, let's go out there, let's just do some stuff. And then you go, oh, now where are we going to post this? Are we going to post it on YouTube? Do we want to post it on YouTube? What's the positive and negative of posting it on YouTube? All that stuff that you need to start addressing if you're going to be engaging with multimedia is quite scary. By the end of this talk, I hope to have scared you rigid about all the difficult things about video. But at the beginning of the talk, I want to say it's really easy. You just need to get out there, do some stuff, post it on YouTube, it's cool. Right, so we've done that. So now we're going to go in a little bit further. We're going to go up to our knees. The water's still quite warm, it's all right, it's okay. Video abstracts, video summaries. Okay, lots of people have been talking about them in this conference. I was at some point a couple of days ago going, I'm going to have nothing left to say. I've been to all these things and people have been saying stuff about it. I've got nothing left. It's not true. I've got stuff to say. It's all right. So they're quite challenging. You'd think it wouldn't be that difficult, perhaps. I started out 6 months ago thinking it wouldn't be that difficult. Surely, video abstract, not that complicated. Not as easy as it looks, as I'm sure there are plenty of people in this room who have discovered because they've started engaging with it. The first question that as a publisher needs to answer is, who is responsible for creating a video abstract? Is it the author? Because they're going to be promoting their own paper. So we want to push all responsibility, all decision about how it looks, the quality of the production. We're going to say this is for the author to promote their own paper. It's entirely up to them. It's their intellectual property or not, depending on how you work. But you know, the kind of the research that they're doing is theirs. Or do we say actually, video summaries is an important part of what we do as a publisher, and therefore we want to have control over our brand and how it looks on the website and how people are using it. And so how do you answer that question? Now, you won't be surprised to hear that people are doing a whole variety of things on there. I'll quickly, Dove Medical Press are an entirely open access author, publisher, golly, get those words right, it's quite important. They're a publisher, they're open access. So their model is that it's entirely the author's responsibility. But they haven't just gone, it's the author's responsibility, off you go. What they do is they say, video summaries and video abstracts are really good. They really improve the readability, the way people engage with the science. It's really important that we have them. They're useful for the author to promote. They're useful for us to promote articles. So they have author information pages about what you need to put into a video abstract, how to make a good one. They have it embedded in their submission process. So when you submit a paper, there's an option to submit your video abstract at the same time. If you submit a paper that's accepted but doesn't have a video abstract, they'll get in touch with the author and go, hey, do you want to make one? You know, we've got these guidelines. It's actually not that difficult. They run a competition every year for the best video abstract. So there's this kind of rivalry going on between the authors about who's going to make the best video abstract, and their authors have really engaged with it, and they've got lots and lots of them up there. They publish about 15 abstracts a month. They've got 1,200 up there altogether. They just host, it's not complicated, they host them on YouTube. That's it, that's all they do. But they are very deliberately, very positively making it a part of the communication landscape. They've gone, this is something that's important. The transcript, if there is a transcript of the video, is peer reviewed, so it's to check that it actually matches what the article says, because that's the other problem. You know, you can't just have people randomly posting videos next to an article if they've got nothing to do with each other. What's that all about? So that's how they're doing it. I've spent some time looking through a whole selection of their video abstracts, and you know what? Some of them are great, and some of them, frankly, are not. But that's okay, and they're comfortable with that. They go, you know, it's very clearly made by the author. That's how they are. That's how they've gone to go. That's perfectly legitimate. There's other publishers, so Frontiers, for example, also open access. They have a slightly different model. If an author submits a video abstract, then they again review it to check that it matches the paper that's been submitted, but they happily host it. But they have a mission-driven approach that goes, you know, our job, the reason we're here is to help promote open science, and part of that is to make this research accessible, or accessible, it's that word, isn't it? What does it mean? It's got too many meanings. To make the science understandable by a wider range of people. That's part of their DNA. So they have a budget to promote the articles that they think are important or have sort of social interest, I guess, that will be picked up by more mainstream media. And again, in their workflow, their editorial teams, every paper that comes in, they have a question that goes, is this paper one that we should consider doing promotion around? And so then if that checkbox is checked, it goes off to the communications team. The communications team have a look at it, and then they put together once they decide that they agree, they put together a promotion strategy for that piece of science. Now, it's not always video. Sometimes they do just a press release, sometimes they just do something on social media. They're aiming to do the 50% of the papers that they promote, they're aiming to have some video content with them. Now again, some of that video content is not a video summary, because video summaries can be quite long, there's quite a lot of information in them. Personally, I don't really do video summaries. You know, if I'm looking for research, there's a video, it's 5 minutes or 3 minutes. You know, life's too short for that. I want lines of words, and I can just skim it and go, okay, there's 3 words there that is meaningful for me. I might have a look a bit further, pay a bit more attention to it. Investing 3 minutes of my time in a video, that's way too much. So they don't always do a video summary. What they do, they've got an in-house design team and an in-house video team. They make little snippets, sort of 2-3 seconds of something colourful, moving, just something to grab somebody in so that they are more interested, and then we'll then maybe go and look at the actual words abstract. But if they've got a story that they think has a wider interest that might be picked up more by the media, then they do invest in a video summary, because it's telling a story of the science and reaching out to people who are not specialists. And if they think it's something that's interesting enough that people are going to spend that 5 minutes on it, then that's what they'll do. So they do basically have a budget for promotion, and they use that to make all kinds of videos. Now, I have permission to share this. Actually, it's on the web anyway, so it wouldn't really matter, I guess, if I didn't, but I did check with them that it was okay. So just to give you an example, I think, and I meant to check before I started this, because I did this research ages ago and I've forgotten, but I think this paper was one about AI, and driverless cars. right? So they did a piece of promotion around it, and they metricize all of their papers in a particular way. As you can see, the number of total views, and it gets ranked against all the other papers. There was another paper in the same journal at the same time that didn't get the promotional, and you can see what a difference it made. Now, I'm not saying that difference was the video. It was also, but I mean, these are in the same subject area in the same journal, published at the same time. It was just that one was given promotion and the other one wasn't. Yes, inherently, one of them was more interesting than the other, which is why it got the promotion in the first place. Yeah, there's a whole kind of stuff there. But, you know, the point is, you do promotion, you do drive people to look at an article. However, it's all well and good. It raises issues, this, because they have to make decisions about which papers they promote and which papers they don't, right? And you kind of go, that's easy, but you come back to their mission. Their mission is to promote good science. And resources are limited, so they have to do, as gatekeeping again, we've been talking about that quite a lot at this conference as well. They have to make a decision, and you know, it's vexed. They do it because that's your job, and you get on with it and you do it. But it's not quite as straightforward as it might be. Another limiting factor, again, comes back to resources, is that to make a good video, it's not cheap. Frankly, it's not. I think I probably will get away with this direct quote. No one wants to watch a crappy video. You know, really, nobody does. Right, so I'm going to stop now about video summaries because that's quite enough. It's not that interesting after all. It's not as interesting. It gets more interesting, this talk. You see, I start with the stuff that I find really boring and it gets more and more interesting as we go along. So that's that. Video summaries, easy for everyone to understand, easy for everyone to see how it fits in the scheme, difficult to resource, difficult to make, possibly, if you want to make good videos, difficult to make some of the sort of ethical decisions around it, but it's worth a conversation. You know, if you're not engaging with this already, which I think most people are, go back, have a conversation about it, work out what you want to do. Oh, skipping ahead. Oh no, I'm not skipping ahead. I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Right, next one. I'm going into the sea a bit further. I'm now up to my middle. If I've got the snake eating me, I'm going, oh fiddle, he's up to my middle. Podcasts. I'm going to name you, I'm afraid. Oh no, I'm in the wrong part. Bear with me, I'll get to podcasts. This is the middle bit, is conferences. And the reason I skipped over it is because actually I'm not going to say very much about conferences, because conferences are this big, hairy, scary thing once you start thinking about audiovisual. Lots of people who we spoke to said, oh, well, conferences is an obvious place to do something because we've already got the audiovisual set up, right? We've already got a bunch of experts together talking about stuff. It's a great opportunity for us to do something here. And I have to say, I agree, absolutely, it is a big opportunity to do something. We look at this conference is being recorded, it's going to be made available to SSP members, they are monetizing it, so there are people who can sign up for just the audiovisual piece. It is a golden opportunity. It's a time where lots of content is being generated. Personally, I think the business models are fraught. I think I'm not going to spend much more time on it because I focus on publishers. So this is more of a kind of wider society question. I'm not an expert here, frankly, but there's a lot to talk about here. So that's as much as I'm going to say. Now I am going to get further into my ocean, and I am going to talk about podcasts. So podcasts, they're quite exciting, aren't they? Because, as one of our keynote speakers said, I sit in a basement with a microphone and I make podcasts. It's not that difficult. Ooh, it's not that difficult. I beg to differ. So yeah, you can sit in your basement with a microphone. But they're not that easy, really. Writing a good podcast is quite a skill. Not everybody can do it. Presenting a good podcast needs somebody who is interested in the subject matter, is engaged and passionate about what they're talking about, is knowledgeable, wants to do it, and more, wants to do it on a regular basis. So I'm not going to talk in detail about podcasts because we have somebody sitting here on our panel who is much closer to it than I am. because they've been making podcasts for a long time very successfully. Podcasts are really important. Don't ignore them. Think about them. You know, we've got 44% of the US population listening to a podcast. 22% of them listen to it in their car. 80% of listeners listen to it all the way through, or almost to the very end. Podcast listeners listen to an average of 7 shows a week. They subscribe to 6. And this is a bit that I like. Comedy is the most popular genre. And again, that kind of links back to how you can communicate with people engagingly. But the second most popular genre is education, right? People want to learn. People want to know stuff. This selection of podcasts that I've popped up here, they're museums, they're not directly in our space, but I felt that, you know, there is a proliferation of podcasts because people want to learn stuff, you know? We're interested, we're curious beings. The difficulties that people who we spoke to came up with said, actually the most difficult bit is finding a good presenter. It's who's committed to doing it, producing them on a regular basis. You know, there's people making podcasts every week and they suddenly go, oh man, this is hard work, week in, week out. It's not to say it doesn't bring lots of benefits in terms of building community, bringing people to your content. There are ways to monetize it, which again, other people will be speaking about. Publishers are using them as talk alerts. Obviously not talk alerts, but you know, the editor talks through what's in an issue, picks out anything that they think is interesting. Sometimes they do author interviews. They'll go, okay, so here's a new issue coming out. We'll interview 4 authors. We'll do 3 really quickly, and then we'll do an extended interview with one of them. There is much material. Things that we do applies really well to podcasts if you can find the right people to do it. And that's the tricky piece. So enough said on that for the moment. If you're not thinking about podcasts, think about podcasts, but be aware that they're not quite as easy as somebody in a basement with a microphone. Not that I'm getting at you or anything, Steve. It comes easily to you, you know? So the other, this is just a little detail, but I think this demonstrates quite nicely why they're quite good in our space. So I lost so many hours doing the research for this paper. I mean, you can imagine. So what I had to do was I had to speak to people about podcasts and videos. So then I had to go and look at their videos and listen to their podcasts. Oh, my word. So I'd go, right, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do 2 hours on this work at the minute.
This Week in Virology, the podcast about viruses, the kind that make you sick.
That's all I'm going to play you. But, you know, I'd be at my desk. I was hooked. 20 minutes later, I'm going, I haven't done the work that I'm meant to be doing because I've been listening to something about viruses. So, but my point being, it grabs you. You know, it's if you get the right person doing it the right way, it's really engaging. Sorry, how am I doing for time, Vilaine? Am I going on? So I'm trying to get...
Let's do 10.
19%, this isn't really anything to do with it, but I just thought this was interesting. 19% of people who listen to podcasts speed it up because, you know, they have about as much patience as I do for things, so they just make it go faster. I found this really scary, listening to it 5 times the speed. So anyway, so when you made your beautiful podcast and, you know, spent time on good production values, bear that in mind. Right. So, I'm now going to go, finally, you'll be pleased to hear, up to my neck in this water. I'm nearly done. And talk about videos in education. So the other big place where video has really, really good value is as an educational tool. So we know about, well, we should know about this. They're using it a lot in higher education, in schools, K to 12. It intersects with our space, right? Because of what we do. It's way too big. I've got not many minutes left, so there's a lot about using video as a teaching tool. And it's something that we, again, need to be thinking about because it bumps up against our space and it intersects with it, and some societies have a part of their mission is about educating. So how does that fit in? I'm going to pull back from that a little bit and just go, do you know what? One of the publishers I spoke to is using video to educate their editors and their peer reviewers on their policies. So instead of having long, dry, dull, tedious documents that nobody reads, they're doing little 2-3 minute videos that cover important elements that everybody needs to know about plagiarism, about whatever it is. So they started with their ethics, so they've done a bunch on ethics. It's internal, but it's there as a resource for people to draw on, because I think people are more likely to read it than they are, well, engage with it, not read it, but engage with it than they are with dry, boring documents. Am I done? No, I'm not done. So I've lost some of my notes, but it's okay. I know what's in my head, so it doesn't matter that I've lost my notes. So the last bit, when you go right in, and this is the bit that I find really, really interesting, is at what point can we use video as what I would call primary content? So actually, the answer to that isn't that difficult when you think about it, because anything to do with people, any studies of people, anthropology, sociology, psychology, psychiatry, okay, these are all about people, yeah? We're studying people. And the best way to convey information about people is, well, obviously seeing them in real life, face to face, but if you can't do that, then video is really, really strong. So if you are in those spaces, so one of the publishers we spoke to has just launched a new journal, it's in anthropology, and their main article, the article is the video. I mean, there's text around it as well. There's a text abstract for this video article. There's only one at the minute because they've only just launched it. And their idea is that depending on the topic of the paper I say, research study output, video can be more meaningful and better. I also won't talk about this too much because one of my other panel members is, I hope, going to talk about this as well. The other subject areas that works really well, so I presume most of you know Jove, and if you don't, Jove is a really good thing to go and have a look at. Jove is a methods journal. The birth story of Jove is fun and interesting, and I've forgotten his name, which I should know because I interviewed them and I've got it all written down, but I'm standing up here and forgotten it. He was a biologist. I think he was a geneticist, and there was some procedure. He was in New Jersey. There was some procedure that he needed to learn. He had to get on a plane, fly to Edinburgh, watch somebody do it for 15 minutes, and then fly home again so he could do it in his own lab. And he went, that's just dumb, frankly. It makes no sense at all in today's arena that that's what we're doing. So they set up Jove, it was 10 years ago, I think, with a view to very specifically documenting lab procedures so that they didn't have to go back to square one or travel far to find out. It means that for every new intake of graduate students, there's some core procedures that they can just go back and have a look and learn. So they now have, I think, 10 journals. The way they work is they have a bunch of PhDs on staff who read all the literature and go, this is really interesting, this is an emerging area, this has been new, and they approach the scientists and go, hey, would you be interested in doing a piece for us? And they usually say yes, and then they've got a network of 25 teams of videographers around the world who go and film whatever it is, sort of splice it. I don't even understand all the words, but this intricate thing that needed tools and stuff, using your hands. To record it, they send all the material back to Jove. Jove have an editorial team in-house. They then put it together, they write the script with the author, and then they have the finished product. Now what they do, this isn't them, this is something completely different, but it is relevant. They also make a transcript. They translate the transcript into 16 languages, and then they post it on, this isn't it, because I couldn't get access to their stuff because I'm not a subscriber, because that's their model, it's a subscription model. But this is a similar kind of thing. This is a TED talk that I was listening to. This is the Portuguese transcript. The video was playing up there when I did it. You've got the times down here. You've got the highlight of where he's talking. So if you've got a piece of content that is core content, you need to be thinking about it. It's not just a video, because that's not the space that we're in. We need to do other stuff with it as well. Oh, yeah, one more thing. The other area that works really well for video is surgery. Now, if you're a medical journal, if you're covering surgery, undoubtedly there will already be in your space some form of demonstration video, whether that's part of your journal or whether it's some other organisation. It will be there. But you should be thinking about it. You should be including it. If it's in your purview, you should be thinking about video if you're not already for that, because that's another really, really good way of sharing information. Basically it's anything you do with your hands, So you guys know your own subject areas. Think about whether there's anything there that makes, because there's no point, videos are expensive, right? So there's no point just making them willy-nilly. You have to think about where it can add value in a way that nothing else can. So I am going to finish now. Like I said, whistle stop tour. I've raced through this stuff, and there's a whole bunch. I've got like 35 case studies in my head and on a piece of paper, thankfully. So look out for the white paper when it comes out, because there's lots of interesting stuff in there. But also we've got this long Q&A session at the end, precisely because there's so much, and actually what you guys are interested in is what's important. So I'm just going to pull out some of the challenges that everybody talked about, as in the publishers that I spoke to. Metrics, right? Measuring usage of this stuff, podcasts and videos. You actually want that. So there are rough metrics. There's not like there's no metrics out there. But if you want to be able to measure whether your intended audience, so OECD were a really interesting example. So OECD write these big, long, tedious reports about stuff that's really important, but it's really not that sexy to read. And the people who need to read them are policymakers who have no time and no patience, and are not going to sit down and read a 60-page document about something really dry. So what OECD are doing is they're experimenting with all different kinds of communication. So they're doing infographics, they're writing blogs, they're doing plain English summaries, not of the whole paper, but just of one or two ideas in it that they think are really important. So a paper might have 6 videos associated with it. What they want to be able to do is measure. They don't care if one video's had 100,000 downloads. That's not important. What's important is whether the Ministry of, I don't know, whatever, the people, it's not a general audience, it's a specific audience. And I think many of us are the same. It's like, actually, you could put a YouTube video out there and you could get loads of people watching it, but that's good, probably, but you've got a core audience that you really want to reach. How are you measuring whether you're reaching them? How does that marry up with the paper? How does it marry up with the usage of the paper? Does it have an impact on it? That kind of stuff. So metrics are a bit of an issue. Discoverability, again, some people are putting stuff on YouTube because they think that YouTube's a really great search engine, and actually it's kind of the reverse psychology of we'll put stuff on YouTube and that'll drive people to our content. That may be the case, but there's also where does a specialist discover this video content? Where have you indexed it? How have you indexed it? How have you made the content that's buried inside a 15-minute video visible to a search engine? How do you do that? I mean, there are answers to these questions, but that's kind of the challenge. There's also accessibility for people with visual impairment. Again, as you get more into the learning space, that becomes increasingly important. If you're selling something to somebody, it's important. I mean, it's important generally anyway, but you can get sued if you haven't addressed those issues and you're selling it to somebody. Actually, you can get sued even if you're not selling it to anyone. Navigation. Long videos need a way to navigate through them because, again, you've got somebody who's maybe they've done a search, they've discovered that there's something that they're interested in. It's this video. It's a 20-minute video. Everyone is impatient. I mean, I know I'm extreme on the end of impatient people, but, that's what we're all like now, right? You want to get straight to the bit that you want to know about. And then if you go, actually, that's really relevant, I might sit and watch the whole video. But you need to be able to get to that bit to have a look. And the basic measuring success is what we're doing, delivering what we want it to deliver. It's difficult. How do you do that? Particularly as these aren't very easy to monetize. Some of our other colleagues will be talking about monetization. So just a couple of last thoughts. Music industry does something quite interesting when they release a new song. So their video budgets vary from about $80 to $1 million. Okay, so that gives you something of a range of how much money you could be spending on a video. I'm guessing most people in this room are kind of going, I like the sound of the $80. And also, they release more than one video. So they'll do the official video, and they'll do a short snippety video, and they'll do a video of just the artist singing. So they do a variety of things to drive, to increase engagement. And I think that's what we need to be doing. We need to be looking out. We need to be looking out at what other people are doing in completely different spaces and go, how does that apply to us? What could we do to engage with this group? Now, I'm going to leave you with this, because one of the conversations that we had, these are my daughters. They're 8. They're twins. They don't look like twins, but they are twins. One of the conversations that came up a couple of times was talking about all the possible uses for video as in our space. What subjects could it apply to? Could it apply to this subject or that subject? You know, could you have a maths video? Does that work? This wasn't an interview I was in because I would have said, but in the notes for this interview it was, can you imagine a video of a computer programmer narrating what she's doing while she's coding? And there was sort of laughter and kind of like, what's this silly idea? I'm sitting there going, okay, my kids, right? These are my kids. They spend most of their lives, there's an app that is teaching children how to do coding. They make games with it. They love it. They spend hours on YouTube watching people narrating how to make games. I don't understand it myself. I look at it and I just go, man, that's boring. But they love it. They love it because it's teaching them what it's learning. It's teaching them what they want to do, and it's the narration part. It's not just showing what's going on. It's the narration of the logic of why the person's doing it. These kids, they're 8. In 10 minutes, they're going to be 18, you know? And they're going to be going into universities, and maybe not my kids, but some people this age are soon going to be researchers. So this isn't your immediate audience, but you know, given how slowly we move as an industry, start thinking about them right now. Right. So this is where the research that I mentioned previously is at, the renewed.pub expertise. The white paper will be going up there when it's published next month. The Twitter handle is where I'm going to announce the paper when it's published, because I haven't actually got a date because I need to finish writing it. My email address and our website. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I talked really fast. There'll be loads of time for questions.